welcome to a special edition of the Speak Freely podcast.
I'm young Bob, and this is the Putting the Christ Back in Christmas podcast event, discussing the importance of Christianity, going against the commercialization of this great holiday. And you have myself, He Speaks Freely, Emma Dunwell, and our special guest,
Graham Moore, who is somewhere in the audience. Everyone give Graham Moore a hand. So before we get to the panel discussions and obviously us interviewing Graham, he's going to give some great tidbits on common law and constitutional law as well. We have some music acts to start you all off. So first, let me introduce Trevor John, accompanied by Winter and Dan from Whom by Fire.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, one and all. Yeah, Winter's going to join me. We've had extensive rehearsals out the back. So we're going to start off with a song about one of our favourite leaders. And now he is the leader of our land, manipulated by a hidden hand. And Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. He did what he was told to do back then, and that's how we got in number 10. Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. He did what he was told to do back then, and that's how we got in number 10. And trees are green, the sky is not, the sea is cold unless it's hot, and wheels aren't square because they're round. A silent fart don't make a sound. And elephants, they are not small. It's no good talking to a wall. He is not nice, he's more like pus. It's called the bleeding of the earth. That Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. He did what he was told to do back then, and that's how we got in number 10. Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. He did what he was told to do back then, and that's how we got in number 10. And one ain't 33, director of the DPP. He's just a sock with eyes of glass, a hidden hand stuck up his hole. And Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. He did what he was told to do back then, and that's how we got in number 10.
Number 10, Keir Starmer.
Yeah, we love him, don't we? So this is a song for all those blind rule followers out there. Oh, I'm just following orders, I'm doing what I'm told. Got to keep my nose clean, don't wanna catch a cold. And if the people suffer, well, that's not down to me. 'Cause I'm just following orders for the tyranny. Oh, we're just following orders, we're going where we're led. It helps to ease our conscience when we smack you on the head. No matter if you're injured or even wind up dead. 'Cause we don't serve the people but the criminals instead. Yeah, we're just following orders, we're not paid to think. Even when those orders start to really fucking stink. To jeopardize our pensions, now that would be absurd. So we're just following orders. Yeah, we're just following orders all the way to Nuremberg. Now that's going to be the new single. There's a full production of that coming out after Christmas. Right, we'd like to invite Emma on, and we're going to do an a cappella version of the Albion, which we put out recently. Oh. Is Dan coming?
Hey-o. Oh God, this is set to Bob's height now.
Well, it could be my height as well.
Average height.
Yeah.
For a man. 5'7" is the tallest average height for women in
And our final performer bringing Guinness.
I didn't know.
You're right.
Everyone budge over.
Budge.
So this is the Albion.
Yeah.
La, la, la.
We'll share a mic.
Anyone join in? Do the lahs, do the oohs, do the patriotic tears. It's always fun hearing someone cry in the background.
You ready, darling?
Or laugh, you know, that's also very helpful.
Where's old England gone? The Albion. Tell me why the land I love no longer feels like home. On every shore along England's coast, I see 1,000 boats. We might have lost our way, but we ain't lost hope.
Heaven take thy soul, England keep my bones.
Where's old England gone? When the law knew right from wrong. Tell me how those frauds in power betrayed everyone. Now enough's enough. Government corrupt. We might have lost our way, but we ain't lost hope. Heaven take thy soul, England keep my bones. Where's old England gone? The Albion.
Lovely.
All right, we're just going to finish this little musical interlude with a song about our beloved king. He ain't my king. Well, I don't know about you, but hanging out with pedophiles ain't my thing. It ain't my thing. He ain't my king. He's not my king.
Not my king.
He ain't my your own people down the river makes my blood boil, makes my blood boil. And he ain't my royal. Well, you can tell him, sailor, by the company he keeps. You can always tell a man. I've never seen a more unsavory bunch of monsters, pervs and creeps. Stick him in a prison for keeps. He's not my king.
No, my king.
He ain't my king.
He ain't my king.
Well, I don't know about you, but depopulation's not my thing. It's not my thing. And he ain't my king. Well, you can sort off sausage fingers. You really are the slime. Well, you can fool some people, but you can't fool them all. They got your number this time. Yeah, sort of sausage fingers. You ain't no friend of mine. So take a long, long walk off a short, short pier. 'Cause you're not wanted here, and you can stick the coronation where the sun don't shine. Sort of sausage fingers, take your climate scam. But you'll be out of luck and you'll find you're stuck up to your neck in some Dutchy jam. And tell me, sausage fingers, what you gonna do when you meet your maker on Judgment Day? Will Jimmy fix it for you? Invite you to sing, he's not my king.
He ain't my king.
He ain't my king. He ain't my king. He ain't my king. Well, he ain't my king. Friend of pedophiles, ain't my king. Traitor too, he ain't my king. On Judgment Day, he ain't my king. Will Jimmy fix it for you? He ain't my king. Friend of pedophiles, ain't my king. Traitor too, he ain't my king. On Judgment Day. Will Jimmy fix it for you? Thank you very much.
Okay, everyone, so we just need a quick few minutes to just reset the mics, get rid of these beautiful tinsely mics, which it took so long to find the tinsel for. So we're just going to reset for the interview and panel discussion with Graham Moore, so everyone can just quickly, grab a drink and then get yourselves resituated while we get resituated. So, yeah, thank you. Few minutes. We need a few minutes.
Shouldn't Graham sit in the middle?
Wonderful to be sat in with the crowd. Is that like gonna...
Shouldn't Graham sit?
If we could have Mr. Graham Moore to the position, please.
Hello. Oh, right.
Yeah, come on.
Big up.
So on the chairs now, we have young Bob, Emma Dunwell, and the esteemed Graham Moore.
Is that a bingo, Steve?
These mics in slightly awkward positions.
Let me just grab my drink.
Whose is that?
I don't know. Is that not yours?
No, that's not mine.
Oh.
I'm on coke.
Is that yours?
No.
Okay, someone's just put a random bottle on.
That's full of Rohypnol. No one got that joke.
Never leave 17-year-olds unattended with microphones. Right.
Those Epstein files, am I right, folks?
Oh, God.
All redacted.
Everyone's like gathered over at the bar. Come on, guys. This is meant to be a Christian gathering. We have a lot of drinkers.
Well, technically, if it was a Christian gathering, just a quick history on liturgy and stuff, we'd all be facing that way towards the east, towards Christ.
Does anyone have a compass?
On my phone.
Anyway, I know. I'm not changing the whole setup.
This is the issue of being so tall. I have to crouch in order to speak.
Mine's in a bit of an awkward position. I don't really know how the table's in the way.
Oh, that's better.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll just speak like this. Okay.
Just before we're all aware, no one's wearing any mics. No one works for Hope Not Hate. You know, that sort of thing. Okay, great. This is all coming in a few months anyway, so that's fine. No one say anything too damning publicly.
Oh, just going to make a few adjustments. Yeah, mine might be a bit closer. I'm kind of like having to lean.
I feel like I should know some inappropriate jokes to tell on live. I can't think of any.
Like I have to lean to. That should be fine. That should be fine.
This is quite suspenseful, isn't it?
I know. Sorry about that, everyone. So, I mean, I'm going to have to be, talking just ever so slightly leaning like this, but, I have scoliosis anyway, so it's fine. So we are going to be moving on to the next part of the evening. There's no sympathy needed. And we have our fantastic guest tonight, constitutional and common law expert, Mr. Graham Moore. Everyone give him a round of applause. So we all know that we are here to talk about one thing, and that is putting the Christ back in Christmas. Now, I mean, I don't know about you, but who here feels like Jesus is being deliberately removed from our culture. Does anyone else feel like that?
Inshallah.
Don't help them, Bob. Right. I mean, even down to just simple desecration now. Children's cartoons with all the they, them pronouns in cartoons aimed at 2-year-olds. Desecration from Christianity and Christ is everywhere. So it's important now more than ever that we gather like this to talk about Jesus, even if we're all just sitting around having a natter talking about Jesus. That's what Christmas to me is all about. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to let young Bob start us off.
Yeah, and I've got a word limit, unfortunately, because people know I have a history of ranting. Well, besides from that, if you look at throughout Christian history, the way that Christianity was transmitted, you can look at this as well. You can go into Israel and you can look at St. Peter's catacombs. There were a series of caves where Christians, they didn't have churches at the time, they were heavily persecuted. They would learn through the disciples in these caves to learn about the word of God, and it was transmitted orally originally because scribes were incredibly expensive and they had to be incredibly learned in the Christian faith. So essentially you're going back to basics, and this is an interesting discussion surrounding, and you saw this on the 13th of December as well with the Putting the Christ Back in Christmas rally. People are no longer going to church because the church has essentially failed in modern evangelism. So they're bringing it back to the very core basics of how Christianity originally started through doing events like this. And some people may say it's tacky, others say it's not like ordained by the church. However, you have to look at where the people are, and from there, teach, learn. I'd appreciate it if everyone who had the opportunity to go to church and live a Orthodox Christian life.
Yeah. And Graham, what is the meaning of Christmas to you, and how do you think it's kind of developed as to where we are now in modern society?
Well, obviously the meaning of Christmas is the birth of Christ. But on the other side is what it's become today, which is a massive commercialised event. And it's been removed, if you like, from everyday Orthodox Christians and been pushed into this commercial world where everyone is just going out, buying presents, doing all this stuff, and forgotten what it's actually about. And again, I just want to, as I start this off, there is a story, which I won't go into unless you want me to go into it, with me dying and crossing over to the other side when I was 24 years old and meeting my mum who died a year before, right? So once I come out of that coma and I'd already died, I found out that many Christians all over the world were praying for me. In New Zealand, in America, and it just so happened someone I was working with was a born-again Christian. And all of these people were praying, and when I got to the other side, without going through the whole story, I was met. And when I was met not only by my mum, but this person who I took to be God, he listened, and he was listening to the prayers. And that is why I believe in the power of prayer and Jesus Christ. And people need to understand that is being taken from us. And what we need to do is re-deliver it. So again, I just want to say this one thing about Jesus Christ. He was a warrior. All this turn the other cheek. There were many Christians that died at the stake, that were crucified, because they would not renounce Jesus Christ. And people need to remember that. He was a warrior, and he was a warrior of mind against the Roman Empire. And once you go back and learn what he was and what he was about, and about God being within you as people, the church mentioned by Bob was of the people. The actual building itself is part of the structure of what they built after. The original church was us, the people, a community coming together. And that's what we've got to go back to.
Yeah. And this is, again, another thing that they've tried to take us away from. I mean, even when despite the fact that church, the term and the true meaning is us gathering and talking about it. It's not a physical building, but look what they have done to the physical buildings where we would go and gather. The churches, they've desecrated them as well. LGBT flags outside of churches. Is there anyone here who agrees with that? No. It's complete desecration. I mean, obviously, Bob is much more, I'd say, studious in your faith.
I agree with the rainbow flag because it's God's covenant to Noah. Outside of that, men transforming themselves to women's a bit weird. But that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's like you desecrate something, sure, like you spit on it, but then when you use it for your own gain, that's when I have a problem with it. So the rainbow flag is now being correlated to progressive politics of accepting anyone where they are, even though it is God meeting at people where they are and accepting that he won't punish them until Judgment Day. So it's a distortion of key Christian symbols, especially if I saw a rainbow, and you see this, how many people have gone to like a traditional Anglican service and they see this rainbow with Christ at the forefront of the church? I don't know if anyone has. That is literally God's covenant. Christ is the fulfillment of that, and the rainbow is Noah's Ark. We all know the common story, showing a rainbow that he would not flood the earth again until Judgment Day. He won't desecrate anyone, he won't kill anyone, he won't punish anyone, because he has Christ to fulfill that. And, it's just weird. Like, these people, their ideas are satanic, but they're vulnerable children, like the LGBTQ plus community.
Can I ask, do you think that maybe is why they chose the rainbow as the symbol? Do you think that was purposefully done?
Well, I loved it because you can look at 2020 and there was like a fight between the Christian community, the NHS of all institutions, and the LGBTQ plus community in terms of brand confusion. Because you went into COVID, you would see a rainbow, oh, that's the NHS. Another person was like, oh, no, they're accepting our trans rights. And then another sensible Christian going along. So, well, that's God's covenant. I don't think it's intentional. Not on the person anyways. I don't think there's like an advertising company, like the secret dark establishment of just a bunch of degenerate thugs saying, how can we really piss off the Christians? But rather, I think that it's either some sort of external satanic influence or just pure degeneracy. How do we get everyone to accept that we are who we are, our current state, without anyone questioning it?
Yeah. And I think there's something that needs to be said about most people here have probably been accused of kind of getting back into Christianity for political reasons and not for real faith. I know that, kind of the Putting Christ Back in Christmas carol event that you recently spoke at was definitely accused of those things. I think I'm of the opinion that it doesn't really matter how you come to Jesus. If you come to him and you truly love Jesus and you want to repent, you want to live your life with Jesus as your example, I think that is essentially what it comes down to. But Graham, I was wondering what you thought about it, because obviously you specifically have had your attention on the decay of Christian values and how that has represented itself in our law system. I mean, even really recently, discussions about blasphemy law, things that have really been eroded from what we once had, which was built staunchly on Christian values. So I was wondering what you thought about that.
Oh, there's a number of things from history. I mean, earlier on I don't normally talk from notes, but because this is specific, England should, as opposed to Britain, which is an island, the country is England, the country is Scotland, etc. There was a case in English law. It was called Bowman versus the Secular, and it's an important word, Secular Society Limited in 1917. The Fabian judges, everyone should understand who Fabians are. Keir Starmer, we just heard a lovely song about him, right? He is a committed Marxist. Marxists are communists. Marxists in general are atheists. In other words, they do not believe in God. They do not believe in Jesus Christ. They think it's all a load of nonsense. And just to make sure everyone's aware of this, in the USSR, they slaughtered 70 million Orthodox Christians, right? So understand what communism is. Why is this case, Bowman versus Secular Society Limited, 1917, so important? Because they reversed the previous decisions overturning another law called Cohen versus Milburn of 1867 and Briggs versus Hartley of 1850. Why are them two important, right? So without quoting law here, our Chief Justices in the past in England have always said that English law is based on the Bible, it is Christian in nature, and therefore we are a Christian nation. And I want to make sure I say this, we should go back to being a non-secular Christian nation. And that is exactly what that is on that screen. Conservatism, Christianity. And we were the most productive people. Again, getting back to what the laws actually said. There is a great article and thesis that was written by a lawyer, A Law Above the Law, The Christian Roots of the English Common Law, by Augusta Zimmerman. And then it goes through and it shows you all of the wonderful Chief Justices, what they said about Christianity. Sir Henry de Bracton, the 13th century, Sir Edward Coke, 17th century, Sir Matthew Howe, 1676, and Sir William Blackstone. Everyone should know who Sir William Blackstone is. The importance of this is, at that time, we were a non-secular nation. The people who have brought in secular societies, all of those societies have failed. And especially when they start to remove Christianity in the way that we developed it in England, and it was crucial to England. I'm not sure if I've covered all of that, but basically that's where it comes from. And I was really pleased when I walked in and see conservatism without unionism and Christianity paired, because that is exactly what we are about. That badge that I wear and have worn for a number of reasons for many years is, believe it or not, a political party. It's called the English Constitution Party. And the core values of our party are Christianity, and we wear the cross with pride. Everybody who's joined us wears that cross with pride. That is what we're about. And then you've got some other people, I'm not going to vilify anyone at Christmas, let me put it this way, but I haven't got an Irish passport and I haven't pounced off the people and got a villa in Spain, right? At the end of the day, there is a line that everyone should draw to say you're either going back to a Christian nation or you're not. If you don't, you are failing England, your ancestors and your future generations. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. We can have a round of applause. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely something to be said about how prosperous nations typically are when they are based and continue to behave based on Christian values. I'm unsure where I stand on hard Christian law, because to me that kind of it's like almost a loophole with free will, but absolutely we should still be based on Christian values, and it is clear today that our law system is completely corrupt from that. Bob, could you just talk us through some of the ways that you think a nation might be more prosperous for benefiting from Christianity?
Well, I would say this much on the original point you brought up. An interesting thing about myself, I only got popular for politics, but I started out doing Speaker's Corner evangelism and doing evangelism on the street. And of course, that pulls in a different audience, so no one ever knew that was my original take. So I never say that I'm Christian for the sake of my politics. I'm in politics for the sake of my Christianity. And that's a very key difference in terms of the way that I'm hacking Christianity whenever I talk about it on a political platform. And of course, the person there has an issue with Tommy. And the interesting thing I would say about that, thing I would say about putting Christ back in Christmas, that sort of event, because of course I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm probably the most traditional and liturgical denomination of Christianity. And even some of my Orthodox friends called me a grifter, an ecumenist, someone who's just trying to get attention through appeasing other people that I disagree with. However, you have to understand that if regardless of what you think about these people, regardless of what you think about Tommy, the Confessing Anglican Church, the bishops that were there, that's their denomination, they are guiding people. They are, in some ways, the sort of shepherd for a lot of flock. So when it comes to the Church of England condemning these people, what ultimately are they achieving? And for me, it's just more of that they're disenfranchising a huge audience of people that are sympathetic towards the Christian movement. And this is what I said to my Orthodox father when he originally stumbled across my political videos, because, of course, they're Greek and they're Orthodox, so they're like, they think it's a bit funny. I said to him, look, instead of evangelizing the Muslim community, which very obviously for thousands of years do not concern themselves with our arguments towards the Christian faith, why don't we evangelize the sort of forgotten flock of the patriotic right into Christianity? Because it seems like they've interacted with Christianity to some degree. The churches have given them a lot of flack. However, they want to disciple themselves within the Christian faith. Now, in terms of the benefits of a Christian society, on an epistemic level, Christianity is a teacher, a guide. It's literally God, Christ, the first icon, coming down to people and meeting them on their level. So in terms of system and governance, it has this sort of social level of caring for everyone whilst teaching fairness, compassion, and empathy.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting point about what you said about how it doesn't take away from it, because a lot of people come to Christianity through a political route. I mean, I myself did. I only really started looking at Christianity because I started to realize how hard the establishment was trying to be anti-Christian. And it was through things like, I don't know if you guys remember when the winter fuel allowance was taken away from the pensioners. That was one of the first things that Labour did. Then we had the Beauvais scandal, where they were trying to reduce fertility and things like that, reduce birth rates through the substances that were in Beauvais, and it was happening for months without them telling us. And then some people here will know and might have met my younger brother, Daniel. He's autistic, and he's not in mainstream school, luckily, thank God. But he would have been one of those children that would have been targeted by this trans ideology. It's been made very clear to us now that they do target neurodivergent children. And it was all those things that really made me think, what are they trying to do? There is definitely something deliberate going on here. They are absolutely trying to steer people a certain way. And I guess I just didn't, until I looked at it from a Christian aspect, I didn't realize quite how evil and how sinister it was. And then, I really started looking into just corruption on every level. And it wasn't too long ago that I was speaking to Graham about corruption from a local to an elite level with a recent by-election where the vote was allegedly fraudulent. So we're seeing it all the time. Graham, could you just tell us a little bit more about kind of the corruption that you've seen just in your work? Because I know you've been in a lot of these situations.
Well, there's corruption at all levels, but our parliament is completely corrupted. You've just mentioned, the first word that comes to my mind when you say, what are these people playing? Euthanasia is now a massive anti-Christian movement, right? And again, a lot of them people are Marxists who promoted that in the Fabian Society. Just to make sure everyone's aware of this, our parliament passed a law where abortions the murder of innocents can be carried out right the way up until the time of birth, right? I can't believe that Not My King allowed that to pass into law, right? He took an oath to protect the Christian faith. He's only in that job because of that oath and the Glorious Revolution. Technically, he has already abdicated. He has perjured his Christian oath, a solemn oath to God and the faithful, right? So he shouldn't be there anymore. He should be gone, right? Getting back to these situations and pure evil of that British Parliament, there's not enough people standing up. There's not enough young people that are Christians coming up through the ranks and want to decide this is the wrong path. and we need to put our country back on that path. So there's so many things that you can say that are seriously wrong with the current, and especially the Church of England. I know a lot of Orthodox Christians. I lean towards Orthodox Christians. I don't want to swear, but I don't particularly like the Pope. I don't want anything to do with a papish religion. And there's lots of things that people need to understand. And by the way, President Putin is an Orthodox Christian. And you should all start looking at why it is that the British government and the regime are trying to start a war with him. Right? Remember, the last time there was any form of communism in Russia, they slaughtered 70 million Orthodox Christians.
Well, slight detour there.
Well, again, there is so much to do with the Christian.
It's the narrative of Christ. Like we glamorize, like Easter, we're eating chocolate. What are we celebrating? A man was butchered on the cross. Then he resurrected from the dead. That's not a very happy narrative, and that's the interesting phenomena of the Christian religion. Typically, when we think of Christianity, we're thinking of the happy-tappy churches which are, singing, dancing, clapping their hands in the air, whatever. I disagree with that fundamentally. However, that is what we're thinking of when it comes to Christianity. But the sort of underpinning of that sort of practice and idea we have of our faith, of this meek Christianity that is very dynamic in its beliefs, it's very much passive. We're talking about a faith that, if you look at some of the saints, so St. Irenaeus, he was told in a Roman cathedral to denounce his faith. He was put on fire. When that didn't work, he was fed to lions because he said that I had followed my Lord for 90 years. Why am I to renounce him now? The whole point being is that we have a tradition, a Christianity that has had, through the light of the saints, and this is why the Orthodox Church does so well, because it transmits its religion through the sort of witness of the holy saints and their grace and their icons and their relics, of all these saints dying in the most worst possible way and still holding to their Christian faith. And it's the clause of embarrassment. Why would you say something that you believe is false if you have nothing to gain from it? Why would you continue and persist in your faith if you know that you will die for it? Because it makes no sense. If it's something that isn't material, you don't have any evidence to believe in it, you're not going to hold on to it if it means your life is at stake. The same sort of thing if I went up to you and said, you have to say that you like the, ice cream or chocolate, or I'm going to shoot you in the head. You're going to say it because, you don't really care about what your favorite ice cream is. However, if you legitimately believe that Christ is your Lord and Savior, and someone said, I'm going to kill you if you denounce that, and that's rejecting in the Holy Spirit, you'd absolutely continue confessing the Christian faith. But then we begin to think in the West that Christianity is meek, passive, and for the weak man.
Yeah. And this, again, comes into what we're seeing with the plight of other Christians around the world. It's been no secret, it's nothing new that Christians are being killed for their faith and their belief in Christ all over the world, specifically in Nigeria. Over 5,000 people were killed just in 2024 alone for their faith in Christianity, and most of those were in Nigeria. I know this has been going on for a while, but we're starting to see this execution style religion-based killings now come into the political sphere. I mean, do I even need to mention Charlie Kirk, God rest his soul? This is what we're seeing now. And I mean, Bob, you've been assaulted multiple times, and there's been a couple of times where I've been angry at him, been like, God, you need to wear a vest.
I'll do anything. It doesn't matter.
I know, but this is the thing now. Going out and doing what Bob does. How many times has he had a drink thrown over him that could have been another substance, something corrosive? How many times has someone hit him with something that could have been a knife? How many times has Bob risked his life to go and do what he does? Thomas, sorry, I get confused which I should call you sometimes.
Any is fine.
But this is what we're seeing now, and it seems to be, and I know that most people here feel the same way, it seems to be that Christianity can be persecuted in a way that not many other faiths can, especially now in the UK, Islam. I mean, in Whitechapel, the tube station sign isn't even in English. I remember last year I was going around and I was seeing all these signs saying, Allah loves you, Allah loves you. When was the last time you saw a poster saying, Jesus loves you, come to church, come to Jesus? I see nothing about Jesus anywhere.
It's
and yet
you
I
don't
see
do it. But
on
here's the thing.
tube station.
No, but like, I fundamentally disagree with this way of thinking. We complain that Whitechapel has Allah loves you, have a halal-friendly loan through this banking system that some Muslim millionaire has donated through Dubai. Do it yourself. Like, if you're genuinely complaining that there's Palestine marches outside the BBC, and you say, well, what about the Nigerian Christians? Then start your own activism group about the Nigerian Christians. If you're complaining that someone says, Allah loves you, say, may the Lord Jesus Christ bless you whenever you're speaking to a Muslim. The point is that whatever you do as a Christian is what is going to be used in terms of its advertisement. If you're a meek Christian, meek Christianity becomes the mainstream. If Muslims are dominant, they're owning businesses, they're going to a mosque, they're punctual in terms of their religion, they're having families within their religion, they're hiring within their religion, and you're not doing those things, how can you, and this is what Christ says, how can you complain about the speck on a brother's eye when you have a log in yours? How can you complain to a Muslim that they have successful businesses, that they're promoting Islam, that they're doing dawah, when you are not doing any of those things for the Christian faith? It is the fundamental hypocrisy of the bone idol West. In terms of persecution, yeah, I get it. Some crazy woman that doesn't like the idea that I'm against abortion because she's had free tries to chuck a bottle of Chardonnay at me. However, I come from a Christian tradition where they literally butcher on mass churches, so I'm not going to complain. If anything happens for me, it further demonstrates that these positions hold water. And that is why, instead of being meek and capitulating what we do for the sake of not being controversial, not getting hurt, not getting some bruises, whenever you ever seen me with a bruise at the end of these events, the people that are attacking me, they're weak, they're cowards, they don't know how to fight properly. And that is why I'll continue to do it. And that is why I advocate for any Christian out there that's complaining that a Muslim is doing something, do it yourself.
Yeah. I completely agree. If there's one thing that I think we can all hand to Islam, however reluctantly, is that, yeah, they are much more, don't know if I'd say, what was that word? I don't know if I'd use the word militant, but I hope you know what I mean in the sense that, yeah, punctual, I guess, would be the right term to use. Especially the youth. They seem to be much stronger in their faith than the Christian youth are in. However, I do think that there is definitely an establishment shift. I mean, just like we were talking about earlier, our king, defender of the faith, which faith is he defending?
Faiths.
So there is defender of the Christian faith, this faith, the faith that the country was built on. But there is an establishment pushing away from Christianity, and not necessarily to one other specific religion, to a more multicultural society, multi-religion society, which, not everyone might have a problem with. But when it starts to affect our laws that we've built this country on, and when it starts to affect the safety of the native population, I think that that's at the point that any other country, especially if it was a country that didn't have a native white population, people would start calling it out. But it seems that just because we're white and because we're British and everyone wants to say like, oh, colonialists and everything, we have to put up and shut up. And I'm not okay with that. I think that this is a Christian country. It should stay Christian. I'm all for having, I don't think there is no conflation for me between race and culture. If you are British culture and you have British values, then as far as I'm concerned, you are welcome. But
I'm English.
Care to add?
Go on.
Oh, English, yes. Sorry, Graham. Actually, for anyone who might not know but what you mean between British and English, could you just give us a quick explanation? Because that might be confusing for some.
So it's possibly... And by the way, I actually got banned from Speakers for Corner. So
how long?
Did you?
Was it the full 6 months?
For quite a long time, because I was on bail, and the bail conditions were that I couldn't go back to Speaker's Corner. But it was because I protested outside Buckingham Palace and petitioned the then Queen. Right? There's a whole story around that. So one thing that everyone should understand, there is a massive difference between British and English. Right? So British is a statutory identity created by Parliament. Everyone should have heard the expression legal fiction. Legal fictions exist, and British is a legal fiction. The nation of England was created by the common law and the people and the tribes of the seven kingdoms coming together, right? Scotland is a separate nation. It is a separate legal jurisdiction. Britain is a unitary state. It's known as that in law, not a country, right? The country is England. Why is it important? Because when you put that label across your forehead to say that you are British, you lose all your rights as an Englishman. You lose all your inherited rights. And there was a wonderful song again at the beginning of this. One of our sayings, or if you want to call it a slogan, you can, is the English have rights, the British have rules, right? And you do not want to give away your constitutional or common law rights because they are God-given, they are inalienable. God gave them to us, right, as a Christian nation. So getting back to, well, let me just cover off a couple of things here. You all have access to current law, which is the English Bill of Rights. Part of that, I think it's Article 5, so therefore it's codified, forbids Sharia. It actually forbids Christian law imposed upon us by priests, vicars, whatever you want to call them, right? So his ecclesiastical law is forbidden, whereas they cannot. So if you commit an offence in a parish in the old days, the vicar could have pulled you in and put you in a vestry for a week and then fined you whatever, £1 or 5 shillings or whatever. They can't do that anymore because of the Glorious Revolution. But not only can it not happen to Christians, you can't have Jewish law in this country imposing things. You can't have Sharia imposing. You can't have any other religion imposing their religious laws on you, right? And that's the law of the land. That is the Constitution of England, and they are your rights. Parliament and members of Parliament are not enforcing, and the courts are not enforcing the English Bill of Rights, which is based on Christianity, and it was the settlement from a Glorious Revolution, right? A number of groups of people come together, and they stopped a civil war, another civil war in England, right? There's no such thing as a British civil war. The Cromwell Civil War, for example, was English, had nothing to do with the Scots. So once you understand, and again, this isn't a seminar. You've been to one of my seminars and seen the seminars.
It was fantastic.
And I explain this all to people. And then once I explain to people what your rights are as an Englishman or a Welshman or a Scot, who have the claim of right, or an Irishman, and then you ask the question, now at the beginning you ask the question to the audience, are you British or English? And the further out you go of London, everyone sticks their hand up and says they're English. In London, I think it was 50-50 at one of the seminars, and at the end of the seminar, by the way, nowhere in the English Constitution or common law does it mention race, right? But I want to be very clear on that. Nowhere. It mentions religion, but it does not mention race at all, because we are all God's children. That's it, right? And we are the people that protected that. It was the English that stopped slavery. Granville Sharp was a white working class from County Durham. And when people understand what actually happened, none of this is now taught in schools. None of this is really taught well in universities. In fact, hardly any law schools teach it. So once you understand and you're empowered with the knowledge that you have a constitution, it is a Christian-based constitution, and once you have that empowerment, you then claim your rights back. And that's basically what we do, going around the country teaching that. But what was the other part of the question?
You know what? I got so sucked in, I've forgotten.
Right.
Genuinely.
But there's lots of different like I say, there is so much you can talk about. Don't forget, by the way, England
I can tell.
is 1,100 years old, right? 1,100 years old. It's probably the oldest actual nation in the world. China comes a close second. Scotland comes in there as well. But at the end of the day, we are a Christian nation of over 1,100 years. The political union of Great Britain is 300 years old, and then it's been used as a weapon against the English in particular.
Yeah. Did you have something?
Oh no, I was just going to say, but before my rant, I had this sort of idea in my mind I wanted to bring up. That there's a fundamental misunderstanding from figures such as George Galloway and people who are Christian, that in order to preserve Christianity, and King Charles has this idea as well, and to some degrees some previous popes have as well with the interfaith relationship idea, we must preserve religion. We must preserve people's not rights, but rather we must work with other people that are religious. That is not what we should do as Christians, and that would yoke us equally with the atheists that hold our opinions in the same weight. And that this is the importance of Christianity. It's commonly brought up as a sort of argument towards the Christian faith that we revere and worship Jesus, and every single religion and history book has to say something about Jesus. For the Hindus, he's a good teacher. He may be a substantiation of God, depending who you talk to. For Muslims, he was the Messiah. He's not the Son of Man, but rather a prophet sent to the Israelites. Of course, the Jews don't speak about him. They say pretty grotesque things about him. The Sikhs say he's a good teacher, so on and so forth. So most mainline religions that have their core fan base will always say something positive towards Christ, and that points towards the cross, because the Christian religion that worships him, of course, worship him as God. And because people always think like this, they always think that what is the best thing to do is to preserve other ideas as if they are equal to ours, because at least they say something about Christ. And to remove the deity of Christ, and Paul talks about this in Corinthians, to reject the sonship of the Messiah is to reject the Father, which of course everyone would identify as God, and to reject the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So as Christians, we're not meek. We're supposed to be brutally honest with people in the way that we evangelize and give people the truth, in saying that we are the only legitimate religion, we're the only legitimate way of thought. You don't have to act superior. We're all supposed to be very pious, humble people, because we're giving the promise of the cross that everyone deserves. And from there, we come to the discussion around celebrating Christ. Why is it that we have Muslims now celebrating Christmas? It's because they don't see the Christian element to it.
Yeah, I actually saw, I think it was just this morning in the cab on the way here, I saw what turned out to be a promotion video for Ramadan, I think, in the end. But it was this Muslim guy with his daughter, maybe it was his daughter, and she was basically, it was a thinker, wasn't it? But no, so he was basically like showing her like this Christmas tree, and it was going on, and then this other little Muslim girl starts saying about like, oh well, that's haram and everything like that, and he was saying like, oh well no, well why is it? But it actually, thinking about it, I think they were poking fun at the fact that Christmas isn't Christian anymore, and I think in terms of, honestly, in terms of like conflating religion and culture, I do think that it's true that even people who are atheist or maybe even agnostic would still choose to live in a nation that was based on Christian values. I think they are generally the most prosperous, hardworking, meritocracies. I really think that all of these things draw people in. I mean, why else do we have so many people coming to the country? But in terms of conversion and bringing more people to Jesus, especially with young people, I think one of the most effective ways to do that is through the realities of abortion. It was definitely one of the things that did it for me. I mean, Graham, you mentioned the 24-week limit, decriminalising women who abort a baby after the 24-week limit. But interesting tidbit. Interesting tidbit about that is the doctors are still liable. So if a woman goes to a doctor and gets an abortion after 24 weeks, the doctor cannot perform it. So it's essentially promoting at-home back alley abortions with pills that are only designed for up to 11 weeks, which can result in all sorts of stuff. But yeah, no, carry on.
Sorry. Could someone give me, guess, the percentage of pregnancies that end up in abortions according to the census in 2023? Oh, just put your hands up. And, no? 48, yeah. It's 48. So that's almost 50% of pregnancies that get terminated. Now, people ask, right, like, what is the fundamental reason why people would have an abortion, right? Now, people would say it's because they're poor. Poverty, yeah, common one. Okay, so why was the fertility rate, I think in India, over 4 children per family unit when they were at their absolute poorest? Well, it's not, because the poorest countries have the most amount of children. It's not poverty. It is poverty in rich countries, because poverty in rich countries typically correlates to a lack of community. Community is always going to be the fundamental reason of why people are having abortions, because it does not teach responsibility, and it completely decouples away from the value of the family itself, because they haven't experienced a proper family.
Yeah, I do think that there's a point to be said about, like, yeah, if someone is in deep poverty, then that might be a reason why they are looking to abort. But I do think that there is, like Bob said, a lot of societal and cultural pressures that will eventually contribute to that mindset. I think that if you were, for example, of a really strong Christian mindset and you were really, really pro-life, very anti-abortion, then I think that no matter what circumstances you were in, unless the baby's health was at risk or your health was at risk during birth or something like that, if it was poverty or whatever, maybe the dad's run off or whatever we have in these modern circumstances, you would find a way to make it work. I genuinely believe that if you were like really pro-life and you knew that killing your baby was wrong and that was how you viewed it, you would find a way to make it work. Yeah.
Can I just say, when I was 15, I met my first wife, I would say. I'm not married, obviously, since. I was 15. At 16, we had a child. At 19, we had another child, and we got married. The point I'm trying to make to you is, a 16-year-old, I knew you cannot kill that child. And even though her friends were trying to persuade her to have an abortion, I persuaded her, don't do that. I will stay with you. And we stayed together for 33 years. By the way, she was a Roman Catholic, and don't forget I'm a Protestant. There was never any problems in our relationship. Technically, we're still friends now. But the point I'm trying to say, even at a young age, there was a Christian belief in me that the murder of an innocent was so wrong, you had to stop it, right? I had a job. There was no issues. Like I say, most of the marriage was good. So, and again, we were married for 33 years. All I'm saying is people need to go back to that understanding and do not kill the innocents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when my mom was pregnant with my brother, the doctor told her, and again, this goes back to the 24-week thing, because obviously this was like about, some like 10, 11 years ago now. And she was told that there was a 50% chance that he could be born with Down syndrome. Obviously, as we know, he was born with autism. It wasn't Down syndrome, but there was a high risk. And they told her that she had until 24 weeks to decide if she wanted to do something about it. Obviously, she decided against it. She didn't even consider it for a second. But it speaks a lot to the culture of, I mean, how many people have you seen that have Down syndrome and have led perfectly full and happy lives? In fact, Down syndrome people are usually like very loving and affectionate. They're wonderful. Why would you want to kill someone because they're slightly different? You're assuming that because they're going to be different, their life is immediately going to be harder. And I think, again, one thing that comes back around to Christ is hope and trusting in God's plan, trusting in God's timing. And if you do that, everything else just feels a little bit easier. And it's harder to let a doctor convince you to end your baby's life because they're going to be born different. And I think that's another reason why it's really important that we bring Christian back institutionally as well as socially as well.
It's just this culture of independence I don't like. This whole notion that everyone can be independent of each other. Now, churches are a voluntary, like, social commune, right? Like, everyone believes in this idea of collectivism, that we don't appreciate the individual, but rather the collective, the whole. And a similar sort of fashion is the family unit, right? We don't believe in equality, we believe in equity. We believe that the father serves a certain focus and the wife serves a certain function and the child does so on and so forth. And it is for the sake of the state. The family is there for the sake of the church, community, and country. And as soon as you bring and sell to women that you can independently go around your life without anyone else, as soon as you do this to men as well, that's why you have the red pill movement, and as soon as you do this to even young children, that is when you completely destroy the family unit, and that is why abortions come with a decoupling of a community, because there's no responsibility in not experiencing what the community would teach you. Now, children are a glorious thing. Of course, many conservatives would recommend you go head first when you have a family. I'm, of course, recently engaged, and one of the things that I found out was that one of the things that I found out as soon as I sorry. One of the things that I found out, and it's very stereotypical of most men to tell you this, is that you begin to have a strong affliction and appreciation of, firstly, your soon-to-be wife, your country, and what you could possibly do with this woman in your future. And that's what I'd sell for most people. Please, have an appreciation for the family, because it will change and improve your mental and physical health exponentially.
Absolutely. And because, of course, we don't want to keep you all too long, it is getting rather late now, and we've had a few minor hiccups, but I think in the end we managed to pull it off, I think. So I think we'll just go around and getting kind of closing points for everyone and messages that we all just think you should go home with. Graham, would you like to start?
The only thing I'll say to you is remember you are English, you have a constitution, you have common law rights, and our constitution protects us all. All you've got to do is claim those rights, and those protections will come back.
We are all the blind men in the story written by the Gospels. Christ sees us first, then we see Christ when he heals us of our afflictions and blindness. Look towards theosis, becoming like God through grace. Become a little Christ like the Christians did at Antioch, and live a Christian life, have children, have a family, invest in your country, your family, and your culture, and your life will be so much better for it.
Yep. And my message is just to trust in God's timing. I mean, it was an event like this just last year. I think it was roughly actually a year ago, almost exactly, where I met all of the team that have helped me put all of this together. And we all prayed that night. We found out later that we all prayed that night. I met Bob randomly at Speaker's Corner, and then he's become one of my best friends and colleagues.
I saw a redhead at Speaker's Corner. I was like, this is definitely a liberal. This is definitely a liberal getting shouted at by a Muslim. I need to go in there and save this poor woman from being humiliated on the internet.
So well, we hope that you have all enjoyed, and thank you all so much for coming out, and Merry Christmas.
Are we doing a Q&A?
Oh, yes. Now we will go around the room. We have the fantastic Bradley who will be going around the room to anyone who has any questions, and we'll do a little Q&A. I think Emma has one here.
Another Emma.
Yeah, it's going to get confusing.
So I just want to ask your thoughts. So obviously a few of you know that I've been exposed in a place called RAF Wethersfield, and one of the things I exposed was the Braintree Council provided them with a balloon arch for Ramadan. So this went viral. What's your thoughts on recently, schools saying it's Winter Jumper Day rather than Christmas Jumper Day, and also the trees are now called green trees rather than Christmas trees? I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
These things wouldn't be... It wouldn't be so impactful. So, for example, the evergreen tree sort of scandal on X, you do understand that they've been called evergreen trees for the past 6 years. The point being is that names are nothing, right? A definition of a word is produced through its context. So if the state says these are evergreen trees, if the sort of people selling them called them that, but then everyone at home calls them something different, they call it a jumper day, and you wear a Christmas jumper, it means nothing. It's just a name on a piece of paper. You need to make it, and this is why originally when I gave my rant, It is up to you. It's not up to someone else. You can't bitch to someone else and it ultimately be resolved. I'm not, of course, accusing you of doing that. However, to everyone that complains about these things, it is up to you to solve them. It's up for you to call them Christmas trees. It's up for you to wear Christmas jumpers and say that this is a Christian holiday instead of the festive season.
Yeah.
It's all up to you.
I agree and disagree because kind of the same way we did earlier, it has been made very clear that, you know, people in workplaces, you know, getting told by HR, you know, don't say Merry Christmas, say Happy Holidays and all this, say seasons, greetings and everything. Well, I will continue to say Merry Christmas. Obviously, everyone here will continue to say Merry Christmas. It is on you to do so. But yes, it's a form of censorship, I feel. It is a form of censorship, an attempt to change language that hasn't been changed in ages. I don't see why we should start now. Yeah, it's all up to us to continue that, but there definitely is a shift going on. Graham?
Any form of change in language is a form of cultural Marxism. Whatever the words are, and I'll give you a good example, the word gay means happy, right? They changed it to mean homosexual. That is a form of cultural Marxism. You need to stand up just like Jesus Christ did, and he went head first into rejecting the Roman Empire and what they stood for, and you should be doing exactly that.
Amazing. Do we have any more questions?
Yep. You ready? Yeah. Okay. Got one here. Yeah, go on.
Hiya. Right, just a little comment on what Emma said. That actually, one of my clients in the last week said that her friend in the teaching field was sacked from her job because she said that England was Church of England and Ireland was Catholic. She got sacked. What does that tell you, young Bob? Does that say that, oh, this person needs to be a bit more bold and stuff? Or is it out of their hands?
Well, I would just say that for many cases, and I've done this before when I was threatened to be put on prevent, you just threaten them. If you go up to people, and I used to do this when I used to work at Turning Point, whenever a student used to get persecuted because they were affiliated with the organization, you just threaten them. You say, listen, I'm going to persist in what I say, and if you sack me for it, I'll go to the papers, I'll make this famous on social media. It's very easy to. We live in a society where the right is very well platformed, thanks to the likes of X. And typically, employers are so meek, and the reason why the progressive left have been able to entrench themselves within these institutions is because no one's bothered with them. Why do you think the Church of England has been so successfully taken over by Stand Up to Racism? It's because it was them that were booking the events for the church. It was them that were trying to coerce the clergy to believing fundamentally on the views of the left. The same goes for schools as well. If you look at most of the people that are educated within universities, they are people of the left. They were the ones that unionized, set up school societies, started putting pressure on the deans, the people at the universities, to facilitate and exclude people who didn't believe in what they believed in. If you don't fight for your beliefs, if you just say the thing that you thought was okay, but then when you get sacked, you step down because you're too intimidated, nothing will happen. If you say something, they try to sack you, you threaten them, and you fight for it, I guarantee you they will step down because they are too scared. And the reason why the left have won, because for the longest amount of time it's been this socially accepted opinion, the social norm in this country. As soon as we are the ones to take the narrative away from them, we will win. And teachers like that, if you could show us information about it, I don't know anything about it, we can fight for him, getting his job back. And in fact, more people that believe in the things that he believes in will be taught at schools.
Yeah, I do think that as much as again, another form of censorship. But people typically, like you said earlier, mistake Christians for being weak, and I do think that people didn't really fight this because not everyone is a natural-born cynicist. Is that the right word, cynicist? No, everyone kind of just. I think people assumed that their faith, their home in Jesus, especially in a Christian nation, was safe. We didn't think that it was going to be destroyed. I don't think anyone, unless you've really been, looking at this and been called a conspiracy theorist for God knows how many years, kind of knew how evil this was and how fast it was coming at us. I think now that we do, now more people are waking up to just how say it simply, satanic, the globalist entities that are forcing our country to fall at the moment, I think that now people are realizing that Christians won't be so meek, because we now realize that our faith is under attack. We will now be in the churches. We will be the church if the churches want to, have LGBT flags or whatever inside. We will become the church. And I don't think that would have happened before, because we thought that our faith would have been kept safe. Okay.
Well, speaking as the person who's been sacked for calling themselves English and standing for an English party, not this party, but another one, and actually got sacked by a housing association. There's a big story around this. We took it to court. We fought it all the way through. And in the end, the judges turned around and said, you wasn't sacked because you was English. They confirmed that English as a nationality and an ethnicity is a protected characteristic, right? So once you know that the courts are leaning, as long as you do it the right way, not with some of these people, but what Bob just said, massively agree with. It's down to you. You've got to stand up and do it. You're the people that have to fight back. Just getting back to, everyone remembers COVID and all that bullshit. They shut down the boozers to stop us talking to each other. They shut down the churches to stop us talking to each other. Even the Hells Angels shut down their clubs. The 1%ers, right? This group of big hairy men on motorcycles shut down their clubs. Really? And there was one group of people in northwest England, just past Liverpool, right? They were Christians, and the lady said, I'm not accepting this. She opened her own church in her own garage, and that is one of the most successful churches now in the northwest. How do I know that? Because their community, when we just put a call out for money for one of our cases to pay the costs on it, their community, their little tiny church raised over £1,000, right? It's not about money, it's about community, and they knew what we was fighting for, right? And everyone marched forward, and when you do that, and everyone realises, everyone must have heard the term onward Christian soldiers. Become that Christian soldier and move forward and take the country back. But that's it. So getting back to what the ladies just said, you've got to fight them at every avenue. Don't sit back and think someone else is going to do it for you. They're not. You need to do it. And what I do is empower people that you know your rights. That's it.
Do we have any more questions?
I think there's a gentleman down here. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Hello, I'm Hugh Anthony. I'm sure some of you know about me. So actually, it's two questions, right? I got two things to say. Number one, Graham, you said earlier, the English Constitution does not say anything about race. Right. Now, back in the day, I don't think they'd need to say anything about race because England is named after the Angles. The Angles being the Anglo-Saxons that came up from Germanic tribes, who all are white anyway. There's no point specifying race. Yeah. There's no point specifying race because everybody at that point in time was white here. We're not employing a bunch of Africans or Indians flying over. Secondly, we've gone on tonight a lot about Marxism, communism, these kind of liberal ideas that have destroyed group identities. Although we said they're atheists, they are all being pushed forward by secular Jews. This is true. I've been cancelled a lot. It's fine. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to say, put the Christ back in Christmas, and Bob, I know that you have sat here as big fans of Tommy Robinson, and you've been at all of his big rallies and whatnot, a man that likes to promote Judaism and Israel a lot. If we are going to reject Islam as an enemy against Christianity, should we not also attack Judaism, which not only bribed the Romans to arrest Jesus Christ and persecute him on the cross, but we should also attack Judaism as an enemy of Christianity because Christianity is Jesus Christ and they don't like Jesus.
Well, I can appreciate the fact that the British Nick Fuentes has acted like a British groyper. However, outside of that, look, I was firstly at Speaker's Corner saying on a religious level, if a Muslim or Jew came up to me and rejected the sonship of Christ, I would attack him for it. However, when you talk about my affiliations with Tommy Robinson, and I'm apathetical towards global conflicts, all I would say is what he believes in and what you disagree with has, in what his character stands for, shifted culturally people thinking that Christianity is cool. So people can complain about what he believes in and yet not bear the same fruit of what he's done for the Christian community. Now, I'm Orthodox. I'm not an evangelical. I don't believe in dispensationalism. However, what I will say is there's a lot to be said on why his form of Christianity, this unorthodox Christianity, you had many people from non-denominational backgrounds, you had the confessing Anglican Church. The reason why they're all resonating with them is because what he says is popular. So instead of demoralizing that man, I'd rather want to work with him with the things I disagree with him on. And also, the reason why Marxism is always brought up in terms of discussion is because it teaches this sort of progressivism in terms of its understanding of time. We must always progress into the future in order to be better people. So that is why. And in terms of secular Jews pushing it, there's a lot to be said historically on why they did. However, when you're talking about Tommy Robinson's political opinion on some of Israel, which I disagree with, I believe the New Covenant does not therefore mean we have to honor the Jewish people, but rather we're all equal in God's covenant. It's just a matter of the fact that that's his form of Christianity that has been made popular.
I think that was a pretty damn good answer. Oh. Okay, well, this is my first time doing this live, but usually I do an advert for FortiCare. They are the fantastic sponsor of the Speak Freely podcast. So this is going to be my first attempt at doing it live. Let's see if I can be a one-take Jake. Which camera shall I look at? Any? All right, I'll look at that one.
And I'll be accused of a shill by the end of the night.
I'm a shill for tallow. I like tallow. So, just to interrupt for 2 seconds, everyone, I'd like to remind you all that clean skincare should never mean compromise. We've all trusted the big skincare brands for far too long. Most of them are tied to Big Pharma, and they all have the massive ingredient names on the back of the pack that you can't even really pronounce, let alone know what they're really doing when you use them. Which is why I'm so happy to tell you guys about FortiCare, our sponsor, and a completely British-made tallow skincare line dedicated to keeping things natural. If you go on their website, you can find multiple choice scents of face and body moisturizers, as well as a completely chemical-free sun cream. And if you use the code SPEAKFREELY, you can get 20% off your first order. Yes! Thank you! Do we have any more questions from our fantastic audience?
Amazing. Yes.
The twin of young Bob.
Yeah, so my main question is, do you actually think any of what you're saying is attainable? With our current demographic, we're all fractured and none of us are collective. We're not collective. We don't share anything in common with our current demographic. We don't share the same religion. We all don't share the same ethnicity. We all don't share the same economic background. So how do you think that obtaining a Christian country is obtainable when we're all fractured? None of us are collective.
The assumption would just be that we're talking about the next general election. When we talk about, I'm not a Christian nationalist, but when we talk about the phenomena of Christian nationalism, it is a small fringe of the population that hold to these beliefs. They're becoming more mainstream because more mainstream activists are talking about it. However, most people, and this is why parties like Reform have had to come in with like the sort of Lib Dem, Labour voting base because they know they can't win off 33% of the vote and actually be successful in Parliament. So what I would say is that it's a long-term strategy, and as Christians, regardless of how practical your ideas are, you still have to hold to them.
My answer would be just a bit of a shorter approach, like just forget all of the petty stuff. Like, for instance, what we saw with the carol service on the 13th of December, as well as the digital ID protest. We did talk about it on the sideshow, Bob. But I think that they could have very much gone hand in hand. And I think that instead of focusing on what divides us, it's an old trope, but we need to start focusing on what unites us. For example, why do we have a million different fringe parties on the right that have 9 out of 10 policies that are the same as each other, but because they have that one that differs, or because one of them is friends with someone else that the other one doesn't like, they can't be a big party, therefore splitting the vote, so we'll never get in. I think that that's a problem. I think that if we have the main values in common that are going to fix this country, i.e. a return to traditional values, stronger borders, a proper education system, all of these things, then you can forget about all of the other stuff and deal with that later and lay the foundations now, because it's the foundation that's actually broken. That's what I think. Great.
I would just say on that, and I do want to go back to the gentleman with the Christmas hat on, which I admire. Well done. So, I want to go back and cover something that you just said, but not yet. On this argument, on the argument question, this country deindustrialised, and it was part of that process to destroy England. There were people warning for decades what was going on. And one of the people that helped initiate and push through that was Margaret Thatcher, who is bowed down to as this massive conservative, right? The one who had a northern accent and took elocution lessons because she was ashamed of her accent, right? Well, I'm not ashamed of my London accent. In fact, I was only born just a mile up the road. We need to reindustrialise, go back to a secular nation. The nearest person I've seen with solutions, real solutions, is Rupert Lowe, right? Some parts of what he says I don't like. Again, Emma's just said something that makes me laugh. That, you know, you get all these people and 8 or 9 of their policies are fantastic, right? And then there's one that's off. The difference with the collective left, if you want to call them that, the Marxists, the communists, the fascists, which, by the way, fascists were on the left, they're not on the right. People need to understand that they will push forward as one on 80% of their values, and then they will argue about the 20% once they've got power, right? Whereas what we do, yeah, it's like herding cats when you get patriots, because you get a disagreement, everyone throws their arm. So we mentioned Tommy Robinson. I have a love-hate relationship with him. When my mind completely changed about Tommy Robinson to the point where I couldn't take him seriously anymore, was when he actually said, live on a video on Twitter, that if you do not support Israel, you are a jihadist. And I said, fuck you, right? I'm not tolerating that, and I'm not tolerating someone twisting my mind in that. So getting back to what, if you don't mind, getting back to this gentleman, by the way, I'm a twin as well. Getting back to this gentleman, I think the audience, and especially the people online, need to understand that throughout history, 3,000 years, the Jews have said they've been persecuted. There's one thing that Orthodox Christians agree with Islam, right? You should have no usury. Interest is inherently evil in the way it operates. And there's two groups of people that push usury. One is Judaism, and the other is the Roman Catholics, or the Jesuits, right? So people need to understand that. Getting back to this gentleman, there's only one part of history I want to point out, and it's crucially important. King Louis IX, in the 1242, I think it was, right? A Jew converted to Christianity, and he translated the Talmud so everyone could understand what it said, right? And King Louis IX then demanded, via a pope, that every one of those Talmud copies, which were handwritten, every one of them, was taken off the Jews and burnt. 12,000 copies of handwritten Talmud was burnt, right? Because of what they said about Jesus Christ. It was the most extreme blasphemy you could ever imagine, right? And once people understand that group of people, and I'm not suggesting all Jews, right? They're just the same as all Muslims are not bad people, right? But what I am telling everyone now is that group of people were persecuted for 3,000 years, as they call it, for a reason. They was kicked out of this country. They've been kicked out of loads of countries because of what they do. And when they take responsibility for their own actions in this world, including killing our troops in the Levant, they sent mercenary terrorists to assassinate an English Secretary of State because he wasn't a Zionist. In 1946, 1 year after the Second World War, and you should all remember that, they are not our friends.
What's that?
They sent letter bombs to our own Prime Minister, by the way, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
They
we
threw
call
a-
it
They threw hand
we call it the
grenades
Speak
in
Freely
synagogue.
podcast for a reason.
Damn right.
Yes, I think we probably have. What time is it actually?
Actually,
have
so
time
I
for
had
one
a
more?
question.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a different question after that conversation. I think is more important at this moment. Do you think that Islamophobia and anti-Semitism are two sides of the same coin?
No. Because Judaism is both an ethnic and religious idea, the form of discrimination that they receive is always going to be different to the way that the West currently describes Islamophobia. So, for example, me sitting on a prayer mat that I've once done before, or me critiquing the Quran, in some people's eyes, in the way that Labour try to redefine it, is a form of Islamophobia. However, anti-Semitism, because it can be done on both a racial and religious level, is always going to be seen as different.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I see that. I think, though, a lot of the time, the both of them do ethnically cross over. I feel like that does still pertain.
No, because like
across-
because I have no issue with real like Arab culture because it's quite charitable. They're quite nice and habitable people. You know, it's a good culture, right? If it keeps in Arabia. However, Islam.
The point raised here doesn't pertain to that so much.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you don't have this sort of racial element to Islam. I think a lot of the times it's not the culture that fundamentally causes some of the issues that we have with the Islamic community. It's more of just their religion.
Okay, so kind of like it's more likely for someone to convert to Islam, perhaps in that sense, because you feel like it's got less of an ethnic tie.
Religious conversions are nothing. If you look at the statistics surrounding religious conversions, and this is an issue within the Christian faith, I think for every 5 people that convert, no, it's wrong statistic. I think 80% of people that convert to Christianity who are Muslim go back to the Muslim faith. And this is the same for Muslims, this is the same for Jews, this is the same for Sikhs, Hindus. Most people that convert into religions deconvert. And that's the reason why there's a massive apostasy quietly happening within the Middle East, and also what you're going to slowly see in England. Because you have all these ginger converts that came about from this like sort of post-COVID Andrew Tate phenomena. They don't really notice and know about any of the commitments about their religion, then they suddenly leave. You saw this with Sneeko. He's a famous live streamer. He started complaining in the comment section because now he couldn't do any of the original content that he used to be famous for, like walking to casinos, speaking to women who aren't in a hijab. And he was saying, look, I'm still going to say I'm a Muslim, guys, but I'm not going to do anything that is compelled within my faith. So I think it's a different discussion because Judaism is enclosed and has both a racial and religious element to it. The discrimination that you're going to be seen with it, like for example, a lot of the times with the sort of theories surrounding Judaism compared to Islam, which it's more of just within the West for sort of meek polemic against their religion.
Graham, would you like to add anything before we finish?
I would. How did you guess? So this gentleman, you've just mentioned two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Right. Forget Islamophobia and anti-Semite, right? What I do try and tell people is that Zionism and Bolshevikism, right, or communism and National Socialism, i.e. fascism, are different sides of the Talmud coin. And once people actually get that, it all stems from them, right? And Christians walked away from that. Technically, Islam walked away from that. Usury is a massive issue. And it's what enslaves us. Debt enslaves us.
So I think to round up, I mean, come to Christianity, basically.
Yeah.
Forget everything else.
Actually, I did have a former question before that, if I can. It depends on time, I guess.
Okay, quickly, and then we do need to wrap up.
Sure. So I've been really struggling with a thought recently about like what it is to be English as opposed to British. And one of the counters, and I just want to be pragmatic about it, that's genuinely the truth, is that like there are, you know, the British did actually expand quite a way through, like geographically, through the empire, of course. Do you think that like there is a way that people can, you know, claim to Britishness and not necessarily Englishness, and there is a distinction there in that manner?
I think. Sorry, I was going to say, I think there definitely is need for a more strong distinction. I mean, everyone has seen the meme of the Yorkshire man who was definitely not a Yorkshire man. He wasn't an Englishman. He wasn't even, I don't even think he had British citizenship. But I do think that there is a need for a distinction between someone who has just claimed citizenship on paper and calls themselves British to someone who, even someone who hasn't had English heritage but they were born here. I also think that there should be a distinction between them and someone who wasn't born here but has citizenship. So I think that distinctions are definitely needed, and I think that it should no longer be controversial or anything like that to be able to state your Englishness and your English heritage by blood, not by citizenship or paper.
Well, like so many things, I think Britishness is this sort of diluted fake term that many people apply themselves to, whilst being English, Welsh and Scottish. Like, for example, if you have a British citizenship and you come from Somalia, how many of them are going to say, I'm Scottish or I'm Welsh or I'm English? It's more of a personal sort of way of prescribing yourself that you're born here, you embrace yourself within your heritage, people and culture. And even if you go down to like sort of county level, typically what you find is that the natives are the ones holding and using their county flag.
Yep.
And Graham, would you like to add anything before we... And then we really will wrap up this time.
So what you've just said there is really important. There is a distinction between British and English. Just to make sure I emphasise this, I'm not what's known as an ethno-nationalist, right? But the English constitution provided in the Acts of Settlement of 1701, 3 generations you would have to be here as a black person or a brown person, and get this, as a Dutch person or a Polish person or any other frigging type of person, right? In other words, even if you was white and from Europe, you would have to be here 3 generations before your future generations' children could have any authority. So you couldn't be an MP, you couldn't be a lord, you couldn't be a police constable, you couldn't be a judge, you couldn't be any of them things because you do not understand our culture. But they calculated that 3 generations basically, and it's in the Acts of Settlement, that was removed by the British Nationality Act 1948, 3 years after the Second World War. We lost the Second World War to the Soviets, right? They infiltrated, and it was Clement Attlee that pushed that through Parliament, and Schedule 4 removed that from the Act of Settlement, which is a constitutional law that they had no right to touch, right? If that was in place now, Sadiq Khan would not be the Mayor of London, right? If that was in place now, all of these places all over England with these mayors and Islamic this and Islamic that, they wouldn't be in place. You wouldn't have. And by the way, just to make sure people are clear on this, it was brought in because the Dutch, right, were taking the mick out of us, putting their people in place in Parliament, and then giving themselves contracts and flooding the money out of England and back into Holland. They was removing our rights. So Queen Anne stepped in and said, end this, right? And people need to understand this has all happened in our history, and our constitution, our legal inheritance has given us the answers, but you're not being told what they are. So again, you must say you're English. And by the way, I've got no issue with the Scots whatsoever, or the Welsh, or the Irish, or the Cornish. I believe in self-determination, and by the way, so did Jesus Christ.
Amazing final note. So we will now be wrapping up. As I said before, thank you to everyone who has come down. This is our first live event that we have put on. We've had a few hiccups. Obviously, people who are here in person saw the situation earlier, set us back a little bit. But we managed to pull it off in the end, and we hope that there'll be many, many more. And, you know, we hope that the next one will definitely run a lot smoother. But then, nevertheless, thank you all for coming. Thank you to everyone who is watching at home. I hope you all have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.